Am I audible or not, Yogesh?
Yes, sir, audible, but slides are not visible. You are audible.
Are those visible now?
Yes, sir, now
Yes,
visual. Now visual.
Slides are visible?
yes, sir.
Yes.
Let us wait for 1 minute. Let the participants join. They are joining. Okay. Good morning, all of you. Let us begin with the next session. That is the 11th session of this FDP on computational fluid dynamics for beginners, held under AICT Atal Academy program. Mm, So, what we were doing so far, that we were trying to understand how to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equation, and we have gone through the discretization of. We started uh, with the kind of a problem which we are going to resolve, which is lead-driven cavity flow problem, which is a beginner's problem, as I said. And the thing is that the benchmark solution for such kind of a problem is also available in the literature, and hence um, many of the researchers, when they develop their own CFD code, they apply or deploy that code to lead-driven cavity flow problem and compare their results with that of the benchmark results available in the literature, and then they go ahead. Then they start using their tool for the other problems. We have also seen the entire Navier-Stokes equation, which is to be solved here. We have seen how the grid generation is usually done, but then there are problems with the co-located grid, which we talked in the morning in terms of pressure gradient and the continuity equation. We have seen that the pressure and velocity decoupling occurs, and because of which it's not recommended to make use of a co-located grid. Although later on the co-located grid is being, the people have developed the solution methodology even for co-located grid, but still the finite volume methodology wherein staggered grid is used is very popular in all the softwares, and hence we are dealing with that. co-located gears can also be taught, but that will take a separate. It will take a separate 2 or 3 hours of session is required for that, which we have not planned in this particular program. We have seen how each independently how the U control volume, V control volume, and P control volume looks like, and we have seen the location of the corresponding other control volumes if we consider any of the control volumes in that. We have seen how to discretize. We have through physical laws we have tried to understand how to obtain the continuity equation in the discretized form itself. We have not used here the Gauss divergence theorem or any other mathematical tool to bring out the equations. We have seen so this is the discretized form of a continuity equation which we looked at in the morning, and then we try to understand the discretization of the unsteady term. We try to develop the discretized form of the convection term by considering x momentum lost and y momentum lost through various phases of the control volume. And for that, of course, to calculate the x momentum lost by the fluid in the control volume, we considered U control volume, and we tried to write down the expressions for the mass fluxes occurring across each of the phases of a U control volume, and then from those mass to that mass fluxes we multiplied by area, and then further multiplied by the convected variable. For x momentum equation, it is of course U velocity, and then from that we can write down the x momentum loss through each of the phases, which requires mass flux to be calculated at each of the phases, for which we have given the expressions here, and we need to calculate the value of a variable, that is U velocity, if it is x momentum loss, and that can be calculated using convection schemes, which we talked about in the sessions which we conducted yesterday. The same thing we did for the y momentum lost also through all the phases, and we wrote all the equations for the mass fluxes. Do remember the mass fluxes are required to be derived by carrying out the interpolations. However, the convected variable is to be calculated using convection schemes. We also talked about the convection heat transfer. That was the convection loss, momentum, x and y momentum loss because of a convection, but then heat is also lost. So we tried to develop the equation for heat loss also in terms of the information from the staggered grid. So again, we calculate the mass fluxes. To mass flux, we multiply by the convected variable, that is TE, then area, and that gives me the total convection occurring across each of the phases, which can be added together to obtain the equation. Then we try to understand how to write down the convection flux, how to write down the total convection. Then we talked about the diffusion term also. We have seen if it is a diffusion, then we need to take into consideration the viscous forces. Viscous forces are calculated by using Newton's second law of viscosity, Newton's law of viscosity, that is mu into del U by del Y is nothing but your shear stress, and that shear stress, if it is multiplied by corresponding area, what we obtain is a viscous force. So we consider viscous forces acting on each of the control volumes, U control volume, and then we also consider V control volume to understand how to calculate the viscous forces, how to calculate the velocity gradients. These are the velocity gradient. To that, if I multiply by mu, I get shear stress, and to that, if I multiply by area, I get shear force. So the shear forces are required to be calculated. The information, all the shear forces are shown in the diagrammatic form using the staggered grid information in each of these cells. We discuss all this in detail in the morning. Then we also talk about the conduction heat transfer using Fourier law of heat conduction. From that law itself, we can derive the discretized form of the equation, the discretized form of the conduction term in the heat transfer equation, energy equation especially. Then we wrote the equation in terms of diffusion flux or total diffusion, which is occurring across all the phases of the control volume. we were about to talk about the pressure term. We will do so now because the pressure term is a special term which actually creates a problem when solving the internal equation. So the pressure term can be written in the discretized form. If it is a x momentum x direction, then pressure force act only in the on the east and west faces because pressure always acts in the direction normal to the face. So in the discretized form, pressure term can be written as minus. You remember the pressure term has got a negative sign in the Navier-Stokes equation itself. So that minus sign is kept here. Minus summation over east and west faces of PF into delta S. Pressure into area that gives the pressure force. So this is my pressure force. So PW into delta Y. PW is the W is the west face and E is the east face. So PW into delta Y is in positive direction. So no negative sign. Then this is minus P into delta Y because the positive x direction force is considered as is considered as positive. However, here force is actually it acts in the reverse direction because the pressure acts towards the control volume. So this is the negative sign which we have introduced here. Similarly, the pressure term, this is shown with respect to that of the main control volume, but when it comes to solving the x momentum equation, we need to make use of u control volume. So in terms of u control volume, this minus PE can be replaced in terms of P capital E, and minus P and this PW can be replaced in terms of PP. Sorry, there is this negative sign has been is a typographical mistake. So PW into delta SW, instead of PW we can use PP when it is applied to U control volume. And instead of PE we can use P small e, we can use P capital E. So this information is known to us from our initial guess or initial conditions for the pressure because this is a cell center. Here there is no cell center as such for pressure, but here we do have the cell center. So PE is in terms of P capital E and PW is in terms of P capital P.
Sir, sorry for the interference. Sir, can you please maximize the slides?
Oh yes, I'm sorry. Have I started recording?
Yes, sir, it is recording.
Thank you very much. Is that okay?
Yeah, fine, sir.
So similarly, pressure force in y direction can be written in terms written as minus summation over north and west south faces of PF delta SL. So here PS delta X is there and minus PN delta X is there. Now you know why the negative sign is introduced here. The same thing we can write when it is applied to V control volume because my Y pressure force in Y direction comes in the Y momentum equation, and Y momentum equation we are going to apply to V control volume. So here I do have P north and here I do have PP. So these pressures can be directly written. So instead of writing minus PS, I can write down PP, or instead of writing PN, I can write down P capital N. So because this information is known to me, so my PP and PN will be written. So this is a diagrammatic representation of the pressure force. So having done that, having written a pressure, so what we have done, we have discretized, we have written unsteady term in the discretized form. We also know how to calculate the total convection occurring across all the phases of a control volume. We also know how to write the pressure term. We also know how to write down the total diffusion occurring across all the phases of the control volume. I can write down a single equation. This is X momentum equation. Rho UP at n plus 1 upon minus rho UP at nth level divided by delta T. This is my unsteady term. Of course, into delta Vp is there. So this term is represented diagrammatically here. So my UP is changing from one instant to another instant. That's what is proposed here. Then my total convection which is occurring in summation over east, west, north, south faces at CFU This is X momentum equation into delta SF. The same is shown here diagrammatically. FME into UE into delta SE. I know the expression for FME, how to calculate FME, that I have explained to you. How to calculate FMN, FMW, FMS, all these mass fluxes are required to be calculated using the interpolation of the velocities, and we multiply those velocities with that of the rho to obtain the mass flux, and to that mass flux, if I multiply by the corresponding area, what I obtain is the total mass flow rate, and that mass flow rate, if it is multiplied by the variable of the faces, what I obtain is the total convection of that variable, and here in this case the variable is u velocity. Here in this case was variable is u velocity. In every case variable is u velocity because we are applying it to x momentum equation, and that gives me, if I add all these four terms, what I obtain is a total convection occurring across all the phases of the control. That's my second term. On to other side, I have pressure force, and similarly I have total diffusion occurring across. This I have not shown in the slide, but that can also be shown in the similar fashion, which we have seen earlier. This is X momentum equation. In the same fashion, I can write down Y momentum equation. I think I need not to explain the Y momentum equation now. Again, unsteady term, convection term, pressure force term, and diffusion term. So these four terms forms the entire Navier-Stokes equation. Momentum equation I'm talking about especially forms the momentum equation. So again, this is unsteady representation of unsteady term and convection term, and this is my pressure force term. These are all mass fluxes which can be calculated using the expressions which we have provided to you after carrying out the interpolation. And there is a VE, VN, VW, and VS. This is a convected variable which can be determined by using the convection schemes which we have studied yesterday. Same way, energy equation can also be written. First is the unsteady term, which is shown diagrammatically here. This is TP changes from TP at nth level to TP at n+1 level. And we have convection of the heat here. FCFT is a convection flux of heat transfer. It is a flux of heat. This is diffusion flux, diffusion of a heat. So unsteady term, convection term, and diffusion term. The energy equation consists of all the three terms only. We may have an heat generation term also, but that has not been shown here. So the things are shown diagrammatically. Here my convected variable is temperature, that is TE, TN, TW, TS. These are my convected variables, and these convected variables are required to be determined by using convection schemes. And of course, FME, FMN, FMW, FMS, these are to be determined by using interpolation of the velocities. And by carrying out the interpolation of the velocity, we obtain the velocity across the faces, and that velocity multiplied by rho, what we obtain is the mass flux. So this is my algebraic equation, X momentum algebraic equation, my Y momentum equation, which is in algebraic form. All the terms are algebraic in nature. There is no differential term in the equation, and here also in the energy equation there is no differential term in the equation. All the equations are algebraic in nature. Now these algebraic equations are required to be solved. How to solve that equation is the main important thing which we will be trying to learn in the present lecture, in the present session. So now, if it is a X momentum equation, let's say U control volume, I apply it to X momentum equation, I solve for U control volume. This is my UP, this is PE, this is PP. This UP is essentially a velocity on the east face of a main control volume. Now, this x momentum equation which we have written here, this x momentum equation, if I consider this velocity as ue velocity, the x momentum equation can be written in the form like this. What we have done in this equation while writing this equation, we collect all the terms in the x momentum equation. We collect all the terms in the x momentum equation with suffix e. Then we collect all the terms in the x momentum equation with suffix w, north, south. All terms we collect together. All the terms with suffix e collect together. We put it in one bracket, and then ue term is taken out of the bracket. Then what is left inside the bracket is termed as ae. The same thing we do for a small n, a small w, a small u small n, u small w, u small south, and so on and so forth. For all the velocities we do that, and we write pressure terms separately. Pp minus Pe. Here the two forces occurring are Pp minus Pp. P is the total pressure force acting on the faces, and that is multiplied by A. And whatever is remaining, that is kept inside B. So this is a form of equation. We have just written it in the different form, nothing else. This AE and A and B, these are the coefficients, and indicates the dimensionality of the problem. 4 U neighbors are there for 2D and 6 for 3D problem. So far, while deriving the equations, we dealt with a 2D problem, but the problem can be 3-dimensional as well. In that case, you will have in that case you will have 6 neighbors. Each cell center will have 6 neighbors. The term B is defined earlier, but the pressure term is not. This pressure term, I said in the earlier cases also, I said B is whatever is left, that is kept in B. But here, whatever is left among that, in that, the pressure is also there, but we are keeping pressure term aside. The term B is defined as earlier, but the pressure term is not absorbed in this source term. It is kept aside because we want to deal with the pressure term separately. Since the pressure field is also to be calculated, it will be inconvenient to bury this particular term in B. The pressures in the momentum equations cannot be buried in term B. That will create an inconvenience because we want to calculate pressure at the cell sectors also. The term Pp minus Pe into A is the pressure force acting on U control volume. Do remember, this is a pressure force acting on U control volume. So this is a separate different form of the equation which we have written. And we'll try to look at how to solve this equation. Similarly, I can write down the y momentum equation in the same fashion. I have already explained you how to write down this x momentum equation in this form. The y momentum equation can also be written in this. It is A and V and summation A and B, summation over A and B, summation A and B, V and B plus B plus Pp minus Pn into An. This is my pressure force. This is a source term. We have not buried this particular term in B. Now, let's come to the solution methodology. I mean, what we have done so far, we have simply written the equation in a different form. That's it. Let us now come to the solution methodology. The momentum equation can be solved only when the pressure field is given or is somehow estimated. So what is the meaning of this particular statement? That we must know either the pressure field and then we can determine the velocity field, or we must guess the pressure field, or we must have some estimation of the pressure field. So pressure field is essentially used as a triggering or the starting point for obtaining the solution to numerical solution to the velocity. And this particular pressure field, we call it as a predicted pressure field. Predicted. We decide, we predict something, we guess something. Unless a correct pressure field is employed, the resulting velocity field will not satisfy the continuity equation. So what we are going to do, we are going to see to it every time whether my continuity is satisfied or not. Whether my continuity is satisfied or not, that has to be ensured. And if the continuity is satisfied, it does mean whatever the pressure field we do guess or estimate is correct. And then the corresponding velocity field is also correct. So how do we gauge the pressure? If my gauge pressure does not satisfy continuity equation, what do we do? What can be done? And that's what we are going to understand. The velocity field based on the gauge pressure P star can be denoted as U star and V star. Let us say I gauge some pressure, and let's say that gauge pressure is P star. At all the cell centers, I guess that pressure has got certain value. That's the initial condition of a pressure. If I have the pressure values, I will be able to obtain the velocity values. Simply put the pressure here, and I can calculate this velocity U E star. This will be known to me either from initial condition and boundary condition. A and B and AE will be known to me because those are the coefficients that involves geometric parameter, fluid properties, and so on and so forth. So these equations are written in terms of gauge velocities, and gauge velocities are written in terms of gauge pressure. So PP star, PE star, these are all gauge pressures. So this is a gauge velocity. This is X momentum equation, this is Y momentum equation. Let's assume that this is my equation B. Let's assume that the earlier equation which I had written is equation A. This is also A. This is A for Y momentum, this is A for X momentum. This is B for X momentum, this is B for Y momentum. Now, let's say my P is the actual pressure. This is my gauge pressure. To gauge pressure, if I add the pressure correction, what I obtain is the actual pressure. This is gauge pressure. If it is not correct, I need to correct it. Let's say P prime is a correction in the pressure. So gauge pressure plus correction in the pressure gives me the actual pressure. The response of a pressure correction, that is P prime, to the velocity component is, so if my gauge pressure, to gauge pressure, if I add the correction in pressure, this is correction in pressure, it's not corrected, it's correction in pressure, I get the actual pressure. Similarly, to gauge velocity, if I add the corrected part of the velocity, I get the actual velocity. Similarly here, to gauge velocity, if I add the corrected part, so velocity correction, if I add, what I obtain is the actual velocity. So now, if I subtract equation B from that of equation A, this is my equation B, which is in terms of gauge velocity. This is equation in terms of actual velocity. If I subtract B equation from A equation, what I obtain is, I will obtain C. If I subtract gauge pressure from actual pressure, gauge velocity from actual velocity, gauge velocity from actual velocity, what I obtain is the prime velocity. So if I subtract the equation, I will obtain the expression in terms of prime velocities and prime pressure. That is correction, velocity correction and pressure correction. I obtain the expression x momentum equation or y momentum equation for that matter. In terms of, here I'm talking about x momentum equation. This is x momentum equation in terms of corrected velocity, or in terms of velocity correction and pressure correction. Now what we are doing, we approximate this equation by neglecting this particular term. I will come back to you why I am neglecting this particular term. I will tell you later on as to neglecting this term does not make any difference. But at this point of time, let us neglect. I will tell you the reason later on. So the approximation is being introduced here. So what does approximation do? It gives me this expression, that is AE into UE prime is equal to PP prime minus PE prime into AE. Let us assume that capital AE upon small ae is D. So what I obtained by doing so, UE is approximately equal to DE into PP prime minus PE prime. This particular expression is called a velocity correction formula. What does it indicate? So do remember, this AE is the area and this AE is a coefficient. This expression gives me velocity correction in terms of pressure correction. This equation gives me velocity correction in terms of pressure correction. And if this corrected velocity is known to me, if this correction in the velocity is known to me, I can find out the actual velocity. It is guess velocity plus corrected velocity. Velocity correction. So actual velocity is guess velocity plus velocity correction. So I need to know the pressure correction if I want to find out how much is the correction in the velocity. I need to find out the pressure correction. How to find out the pressure correction? The same thing I have done it for y momentum equation. I need not to explain you. Equation A minus B. So again, this is neglected. This is my velocity correction formula. Vn prime is equal to dn into pp prime minus pn prime. It was earlier pp prime minus p prime. Now, so we now know that the velocity correction requires pressure correction. Now, how to do the pressure correction? That is the issue. How to calculate the pressure? How much correction shall we do? So that can be done with the help of a continuity equation. We will be talking about the continuity equation now. Here comes the role of a continuity equation. In the discretized form, we have seen this is the del rho by del t plus del rho u by del x plus del rho v by del y is my continuity equation. In the discretized form, if I take the algebraic summation of all these terms, in the discretized form, I can write down the equation as rho p minus rho p 0 upon delta t into delta v. This is my unsteady term. The equation, it is rho ue minus rho uw into delta y, rho ue minus rho uw into delta y, plus rho vn minus rho vs into delta x, because this area is delta x and this area is delta y, and that should be equal to 0. That's my continuity equation. Now, in this continuity equation, we have UE, we have UW, we have VN, we have VS. Now, what we have to do, we have to this is the velocity. These velocities can be written in terms of pressure correction. See, I have the expression for Vn in terms of pressure correction. I have UE velocity in terms of pressure correction. I can similarly write down UW velocity in terms of pressure correction, US velocity in terms of pressure correction, all the velocities, VS velocity in terms of pressure correction. I can write down all those velocities in terms of pressure corrections. And then what I do, I put these velocities in terms of pressure correction in the equation. All these velocities can be placed in terms of here if we substitute. So substitute for all the velocity components from the velocity correction formula. Velocity correction formula is in terms of pressure correction. In that case, this entire equation will be in terms of a pressure correction equation, in terms of pressure correction. Now, I can collect all the terms with PP prime together, put it inside the bracket, take PP prime outside. So what is left inside the bracket can be termed as AP. The same thing I can do for PE prime, because this will have PE prime also now. Collect all the terms with PE prime. Put all those terms in one bracket. Take PE prime outside. What is left inside the bracket is AE. Collect all the terms with PW prime. Put all those terms in one bracket. Take PW prime outside the bracket. What is left inside the bracket is AW. Similarly for A and PP prime. Similarly for AP. Similarly for AS prime. Sorry, there is a typographical mistake again here. It's not AP, it is AS. AS, PS prime. And whatever is left then you can put that in point B. If we do that, I'm giving you for your reference the expressions which we obtained for AE, AW, AN, AS and AP. AE is rho into D into delta Y, AW into. So this activity you will have to do at your own. You can take out the piece of paper and you can actually work out. You will find that you obtain the coefficients like this. A is equal to rho E D delta Y, AW is equal to rho W dW delta Y, AN is equal to rho N D and delta X, AS is equal to rho S DS delta S. What is D? D is capital A upon small a, dW is capital AW upon small aw, and similarly for other two. And AP turns out to be summation of AE, AW, AN plus AS. AE plus AW plus AN plus AS. And surprisingly, quantity B turns out to be this quantity. What is this quantity? Can anybody tell me by putting on their mic? What does this quantity represent now? Anybody?
Continuity equation.
It is a continuity equation. So B represents the continuity equation. And if this B is 0, what does it mean? If this B is 0, this quantity turns out to be 0. What does it mean? It means that my U star and these values U star and V star values are correct. Are you getting my point or not? So if B turns out to be 0, so the term B in the pressure correction formula equation is essentially negative. It's essentially the left hand side of the discretized continuity equation evaluated in terms of starred velocities. Thus, if B is 0, the starred velocities do satisfy the continuity equation. The term B is thus a mass source which the pressure correction must annihilate. So we need to do the pressure correction such that the mass source is annihilated. That is, mass source becomes 0. So what we do when we actually carry out the simulation, what we do, we first assume certain values of pressure, which is my predicted pressure. From that I calculate or gas pressure. From that I calculate the gas velocities. If my gas velocities provide me the value of B equal to 0, that is, if my gas velocities satisfy the continuity equation, my pressure gas was correct. And from that pressure gas, whatever velocities I have found out are correct. But if it is not so, what I do some pressure correction. How do I do pressure correction? I use this equation. PP prime So see, PE prime, PW prime, PN prime, and PS prime, this will be known to me from initial conditions of pressure correction and boundary conditions of pressure correction. So do remember, whenever you solve the problem on fluid flow, you also need to provide the, as you provide the boundary conditions for velocity and pressure, similarly you need to provide the boundary conditions for pressure correction also. How to write the boundary conditions for pressure correction, that we will see. We will learn how to do that. But in order to solve such kind of equation for PP prime, because this is the pressure correction, in order to solve this equation, you need boundary conditions for pressure correction also. So by using this equation, you can calculate the pressure correction. Once you know the pressure correction, you can calculate the velocity correction. And once you know the velocity correction, you can calculate the actual velocity. And this velocity is then, if it satisfies the continuity equation, you have arrived at the solution. And whatever pressure correction you did is a correct pressure correction. And then P star plus P prime, that gives you the actual pressure in the flow domain and actual velocities in the flow domain. Thus, the term B must annihilate. So what? So once again, I am reiterating. What we do, we gauge some pressure. From gauge pressure, we calculate some gauge velocities. If gauge velocities satisfy the continuity equation, it's fine. If it doesn't satisfy, we calculate the mass correction. We calculate the pressure correction. From the pressure correction, we calculate the velocity correction, and from the velocity correction, we again calculate the new velocities. And if those new velocities satisfy the continuity equation, my velocity field is obtained at that particular instant. This has to be done for the next time instant if we are solving the transient problem. So we keep on. So the time loop is a one loop. Within that time loop, there is another loop goes on, and that loop is for the pressure correction, and that loop is for the, of course, for the continuity equation. So if your continuity equation is satisfied within the pressure correction loop, then you can come out, you can write down the velocities at a particular instant, then you switch over to the next time instant, and so on and so forth. This particular methodology, which I have just now talked, is called a simple, and the algorithm, if I write down the algorithm based on this particular methodology, that algorithm is called a simple algorithm. It is semi-implicit method for pressure linked equation. The pressure is linked here to that of the velocity. In the earlier, at the beginning, we have seen if we make use of a co-located grid, my pressure is delinked. Simple does not mean simple. Simple means semi-implicit method for pressure linked equations. This methodology was proposed by Patankar and Spalding in 1972. Professor Patankar, as was told to you at the beginning, happened to be the professor at, he happened to be the alumni, he is an alumni of College of Engineering, Pune, and he happened to be the professor at University of Minnesota, and he used to teach numerical solution methods for fluid mechanics and heat transfer, wherein he developed through his classroom teaching, he developed this particular methodology, and which is popularly known as a simple technique, simple methodology for obtaining the numerical solution to fluid flow problem. This particular method is incorporated in almost all the softwares which are available in the market for obtaining CFD solutions. Later on, there were some modifications to the methodology, which is simpler and simplex, but then we are not going to go through those simpler and simplex methods because of paucity of the time. But whatever I have just now discussed is a simple algorithm which is very popular among the CFD community. Professor Patankar is also considered as a father figure in computational fluid dynamics. He is in fact known as a father of computational fluid dynamics. He has written a nice book on CFD, which is titled as Numerical Fluid Flow and Heat Transfer, a small book which is even today referred by many people. The book is essentially a beginner's book. Again, you being a beginners in computational fluid dynamics, you can use that book and try to get into the fundamentals of CFD. So that once you are through with the fundamentals of computational fluid dynamics, it is possible for all of you to pick up and use the softwares effectively. I mean, most of the things which I am teaching you are derived from Professor Patankar's book. I am giving you the algorithm here, a simple algorithm which is known as the first step in the simple algorithm is enter the input material property geometric parameters like L1 and L2. I mean, here we are. I am writing the algorithm for solving Navier-Stokes equation as applied to lead-driven cavity flow problem. So L1 and L2 is coming there. The maximum number of control volumes in X and Y directions are to be included. Then boundary condition inputs for if your boundary condition requires certain input, those are to be also entered at the beginning itself. And epsilon, this epsilon is a convergence criteria. Then you need to do the grid generation, calculate all the geometric parameters of all the control volumes. Do remember here grid is little bit complex. We need to do the grid generation for X momentum equation, Y momentum equation, or we need to do the grid generation for U control volume, V control volume, and also for main control volume. So grid generation has to be done at 3 stages. Earlier we used to do it in one stage because the grid was co-located grid. Now the grid is staggered. So you need to make use of separate grid generation for U control volume, V control volume, and main control volume. Maybe you can set the initial condition for phi, that is U for X momentum equation and V for Y momentum equation. Next, you need to set the boundary conditions for phi, that is U for X momentum equation. So you need to give the boundary condition for U velocity and V velocity. Further, you also need to give the boundary condition for pressures. You also need to give the boundary condition for P prime. You also need to give the initial conditions for pressure. You also need to give the initial condition for P prime, that is pressure correction. I have forgot to put that here, but P prime and the initial condition for P prime and the boundary condition for P prime are also important. Those are required when we go ahead with the solution. Having done that, you need to guess the pressure field, that is P star. Once you guess the pressure field, solve the momentum equation, such as equation B. I mean, from this momentum equation, you can obtain the gas velocities. So if you know the gas pressure, you can calculate gas velocity. Once you find out the gas velocity, solve the pressure correction equation. And from that, once you solve the pressure correction equation, you obtain the pressure correction. Once you obtain the pressure correction, calculate P from the pressure. That is P is P star plus P prime. So that you get the actual pressure. Then once you obtain this pressure, calculate U and V from their star values using velocity correction formulas, because we know the velocity corrections, how to calculate velocity correction if I know the pressure correction. Solve the discretized equation for temperature, it influences the flow field. I mean, if the flow field is there, you need to solve the energy equation also. And how to solve the energy equation, that we have seen when we dealt with the conduction convection problem. Because there in the energy equation we don't have the pressure term, so it doesn't make any difference. The methodology to solve the equation is similar to that of the methodology which we understood when we dealt with convection diffusion problem. Treat the corrected pressure corrected P as a new guess for P star, return to step number 6 and repeat the procedure until the converse solution is obtained. So this is the algorithm which we can use for obtaining the solution to U velocity and V velocity and the pressure. Of course, we have to start with certain guess, and that guess is P star. You need to start with certain guess pressure. So this is just a simple algorithm which I thought I must discuss with you. Based on this algorithm, those who are interested, they should take up and they can start writing the code. Even, I mean, I recommend all of you that you all being a teachers, what you can do, you can request, you can ask your students to implement this algorithm by writing their own code, and you can just guide them as far as the procedural part is concerned. But the students nowadays, they are very smart in writing the code. They can immediately convert this algorithm into the code. So you can just have a look at their results. I'm going to share with you the results which are obtained for a simple lead-driven cavity flow problem. You can compare your result with that of the results which we will provide to you, and that will give a very good hands-on experience to the students to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equation. Let me tell you, if any of your student is able to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equation at undergraduate level, he is immediately picked up in the industry. Or maybe if he goes for his MS, he will be immediately picked up for carrying out his PhD also. And students who are actually able to solve the entire Navier-Stokes equation using this methodology, and one who is able to obtain the solution even for a lead-driven cavity flow problem, he is in a great demand today. Let's go through some important discussion about the solution methodology which we have seen so far. The first and the most important thing which I want to discuss is, if you recollect, we have omitted this particular term when we were dealing with the solution methodology. What would have happened if this term would have been removed? If retained, the term summation of A and B, V prime A and B, V prime and B would have to be expressed in terms of pressure correction. And this term has to be expressed in terms of pressure correction, right? And the velocity and the velocity correction at the neighbors, velocity correction at the neighboring cell centers. These neighbors will bring in their neighbors also, because this velocity correction itself is a velocity correction of a neighbor cell center. And if I want to do the velocity correction of the neighbor cell center, I have to make use of the pressure correction of their neighbor, and so on and so forth. You can just imagine this will invite the pressure correction at all the grid points, resulting in pressure correction equation would become unmanageable. I mean, if we would have used this term, the pressure correction becomes really unmanageable, and because of which we omitted this. The omission of this term enables us to cast P prime equation in the same form as general phi equation, and to adopt the sequential one variable at the time of solution. Sequential one variable at the time of a solution. Otherwise, it would have become really unmanageable. Now, the word semi-implicit is the name simple have been used, is the name which is used in the simple, which indicates the omission of this particular term. It is indirect or implicit influence of pressure correction at point under consideration. Why we call this particular method as a simple method, simple algorithm? Because there is an implicit influence of a pressure correction at the pressure at the point under consideration, because of which the method was named as implicit method. That the mass source is zero everywhere is sufficient evidence that we have acquired the pressure correction. We have acquired the correct pressure field, and the actual pressure correction equation need not be solved during final iteration. In the final iteration, we need not to solve the pressure correction again. This converse solution is uninfluenced by the gas pressure. Thus, the pressure correction equation can be seen to be merely an intermediate algorithm. So, as I told you, That pressure correction is an intermediate algorithm, internal loop. That internal loop we have to solve, and that intermediate algorithm leads us to the correct pressure field. So every time you have to do the internal at every time time iteration you have to do the you have to solve the intermediate algorithm for obtaining the pressure correction and the corrected pressure field. Many times it is possible that that internal loop takes too much of time to obtain the corrected pressure. In that case, some kind of under relaxation is sometimes used, or maybe sometimes over relaxation is used to avoid the divergence of the code, and that is introduced like this: P is equal to P star plus alpha P into P prime, where this alpha P is set to somewhere around 0.8. Some kind of under relaxation is used to so that the divergence of the code is avoided. So these are some of the important points which I thought I must share with you about the solution methodology. Now let us come to the solution part of it. Let us look at the lead-driven cavity flow problem. We have actually solved this lead-driven cavity flow problem by writing our own code, which you can also do, which you all are recommended to put your hands onto the code and try out at least simple codes like code for a simple 2D steady state problem or 1D or 2D unsteady state problem, maybe convection diffusion problem. If you go step by step, I'm sure you will be able to write down the code for lead-driven cavity flow problem also. The sole purpose of this particular MPP is that you should be made at least acquainted with this methodology, and you should take up this particular activity of writing your code with the help of maybe your own students. So now let us look at some of the important facts, some of the important things which you must remember when you will be writing the code. As I told, pressure correction boundary condition is essential to be given. The given pressure at the boundary P prime is 0. How do we implement the pressure correction boundary condition? Because we need to calculate the pressure correction at all the points, we need pressure correction boundary condition. The first thing you must remember why we need pressure correction boundary condition, because we obtain the pressure correction by solving a loop iteratively, and in that iterative process we need boundary conditions for pressure correction. So given normal velocity at the boundary, normal velocity is always 0. So its u prime is also 0. On the boundary itself, the velocity normal to the boundary is 0, and hence on the boundary, the fluctuation in the velocity is also 0. Correction in the velocity is also 0. So un prime is 0. So for up prime at n plus 1 level, I can write down a simple expression in terms of pressure correction. This is my velocity correction formula. So up prime at n plus 1 level is equal to dp into pp prime minus p prime. We have seen this equation. Similarly, vp prime at n plus 1 level is equal to dp prime minus pn prime. Now in this equation, this quantity is 0. It means either dp is 0 or pp prime minus pp prime is 0. But my dp cannot be 0. Here dp cannot be 0. So pp prime minus pe prime is 0. Or up at n plus 1, up prime at n plus 1 is 0. It does mean that my dp prime by dx is equal to 0. Or vp prime at n plus 1 is equal to 0. That implies dp prime by dy is equal to 0. What does it mean? It means, and we all know how to implement this boundary condition. If dp prime by dx is equal to 0, it means value of pressure correction on the boundary is a function of value of pressure correction at the inner cell. So PP prime on the boundary is equal to PP prime at the cell center, which is close to the boundary. So this is the boundary condition. dP prime upon dN prime, this normal direction, is always equal to 0. Which means if I'm talking about PP prime here, PP prime at this point will be always equal to PP prime here. PP prime is here is equal, P prime here is equal to this. Subtraction of these two divided by distance between two is equal to this. So who has put on this? Is that Jewelry who did that? Somebody has put on the song. I will take up the questions in chat box later on. Let me first finish. Okay, so we have seen how to implement how to implement this such kind of a condition is how to implement such kind of condition is we have already discussed when we dealt with the Neyman boundary condition. Further, it is important for all of you to understand the running indices for continuity equation, x momentum equation, and y momentum equation. For continuity equation, we solve continuity equation for as applied to main control volume. So my main control volume goes like this. This is one. This is one cell center 1 here, but this is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So continuity equation I am going to solve for yellow cell centers. So running indices goes like this: I is equal to 2 to I max minus 1, and j is equal to 2 to j max minus 1. I is equal to 2 to I max minus 1, and j is equal to 2 to j max minus 1. Similarly, my y momentum equation is to be solved for green cell centers. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? But then my I max is 7. So this is 2, 3, 4, 5. I am going to solve y momentum equation for 5 cell centers starting from 2 to I max minus 2. Y momentum equation will be solved, x momentum equation will be solved for I is equal to 2 to I max minus 2, and j is equal to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Maximum is 7. So 2 to j max minus 1. So x momentum equation is solved for green cell centers for which the running indices are 2 to I max minus 2, I is equal to 2 to I max minus 2, and j is equal to 2 to j max minus 1. That's written here. Similarly, my y momentum equation is to be solved for red cell centers, right? For which the running indices are like this. This is for the inner cell centers only. We obtain the, so we have to obtain the solution. The running indices goes like this: 2 to I is equal to 2 to I max minus 1, and j is equal to 2 to j max minus 1. So those are the running indices for y momentum. You must be able to track the running indices correctly, even if a single small mistake in the running indices when you write down the loop running indices in terms of and I and j, if you make a simple mistake, if your one goes here and there, you will not be able to. So it's very important for all of us to, when we do coding, it's important for us to keep proper track of running indices I and j. If it is a lead-driven cavity problem, if it is a lead-driven cavity problem, how the boundary conditions are. Left boundary of a lead, U1 for all j's is 0. V1 for all j's is 0. P1j prime is equal to P2j prime. See, I was talking about the pressure here is equal to pressure here. Pressure here is equal to pressure here. That only, if these two pressure corrections are equal, then only I will get the gradient of pressure correction equal to 0. So pressure correction boundary condition is given like this. Right boundary, U I max minus 1j is equal to 0. V I max minus j is equal to 0. P I max j, P prime I max j is equal to P prime I max minus 1j. Again, the gradient is 0. This is Neumann boundary condition. These are Dirichlet boundary condition. Similarly, with the bottom boundary condition and top boundary, U I j max minus 1 is equal to 1. We are assuming that the top boundary is moving with velocity 1. Velocity is equal to 1. That gives me this boundary condition. Vi j max. There is no y velocity at the top boundary also, so that is equal to 0. And this is my pressure correction boundary condition. So these are the boundary conditions which I need to make use of when I will be solving the lead-driven cavity. Now the results can be looked in a different way. Yesterday somebody asked me the question, how to analyze the flow. So we can look at the results in different way. One second. I will come back and have a glass of water and will come back in 1 minute. Please give me 1 minute. Hello. Yeah. Sorry for the inconvenience of 1 minute. So we can look at the results in different way. First, maybe we can look at velocity vector plot. We can look at streamline plot. So once we find out v velocity and pressure, once we find out u velocity, v velocity, pressure, and temperature, we can do lot of analysis of the fluid flow, and we can understand the physical behavior of the flow. We can determine some of the engineering parameters also. So what we can do, we can have a vector plot, we can look at streamline plot, we can look at u velocity, v velocity contour plot. We can also look at vorticity contours. There is an expression for vorticity in terms of u and v velocity. And we can look at variation of u velocity along the vertical center line of a cavity for various grid sizes. We can look at the variation of v velocity along the horizontal center line. And so there are several ways in which we can explore the data, and we can look at that data in the diagrammatic form, and that's the post-processing. So we will now look at the, for example, here I am sharing with you the results obtained for lead-driven cavity flow problem at RE is equal to 1. RE is nothing but it's a Reynolds number. Reynolds number is can be calculated based on the size of the cavity. It is rho v Ly mu. Mu is the viscosity of the fluid. Rho is the density of the fluid. Then L is the size of the cavity, and V is the velocity of the top lead with which the fluid is moving. So that's the Reynolds number. Here I am sharing results which are obtained for Reynolds number equal to 100, and you can see I am sharing with you the velocity vector and streamline plot. we know the equation of the streamline in terms of u and v velocity, and we also know the expression for determining the vector velocity. So vector velocity can be determined by taking a root of u square plus v square. So that can be used to obtain, and then I can obtain the angle of the vector velocity also. Tan theta is equal to v by u. So theta can also be determined, and then it can be plotted, and you can now see since my top boundary is continuously moving with some velocity u, the entire fluid starts moving inside the cavity, and we have two vortices which are generated at the bottom. One is at the right bottom and another is at the left bottom. You can also look at the you can also look at these contours are drawn in the flooded as well as line form superimposed over each other. So these lines actually indicate the streamline, and there are small arrows. The size of the arrow indicate the magnitude of the velocity, and it has been also drawn in the form of color bands. The legend is shown here. You can see the fluid starts rotating inside the cavity when the lid is moving up. The top lid is moving with some velocity. So the formation of vortices can be identified with the help of the graph like this. Here I'm sharing with you u velocity contour for again r equal to 100. You can see u is the x direction velocity. At the top I have a large velocity because the lid is moving. As I move away from the top, my velocity goes on reducing. And even because now the fluid is moving like this, the velocity in the bottom goes into negative. So here the velocity is negative here. So this velocity is negative. Here we don't have u velocity too much. The velocity is very close to zero. In this region also velocity is close to zero. So that's the u velocity vector. I mean, I can look at the contours are done in the flooded as well as line contours which are superimposed over each other. Here I'm sharing with you the v velocity contour. The grid size used here is 52 by 52 in all the cases. You can see now at the top, u velocity is dominant, v velocity is almost zero. The red color indicates almost zero velocity. So here in this region, but v velocity is in, look here, the velocity here, v velocity here is negative, v velocity here is positive. So when the fluid is rotating like this, it's rotating like this. So v velocity is positive here, v velocity is negative here. So these are some of the results which we can, I mean, for such a simple flow problem, we know the flow physics, we know how the fluid will rotate, and hence we can appreciate. You can appreciate that the results obtained by finite volume methodology are giving us the correct results. Here I'm sharing with you the vorticity contours. You can see in the region near to the wall, the vorticity is very large, and in the region in the central region. So why vorticity is large in the region near to the wall? Because the velocity gradients are large. In the central region, the velocity gradients are low. So the generation of the vorticity is low. So these are some of the things which we can understand from the vorticity. So here I'm sharing with you the results obtained for the variation of u velocity along the vertical center line of the cavity. So what we have done, we have taken into consideration let's say this particular variation of u velocity along the vertical center line. So we have taken into consideration the center line here, and we have plotted x direction velocity along. So that x direction velocity has to be 1 at the top. At y is equal to 1, velocity has to be 1. At y is equal to 0, velocity has to be 0. And as I move down, my u velocity should go on reducing. As I move down, my u velocity should go on reducing. And then when I beyond 0.5, when I go, the size of the cavity is 1. So beyond 0.5, if I go down, my velocity should go into negative. The flow is occurring in the negative x direction. Here the flow is occurring in positive x direction. That can be seen in the, see here, the velocity at the top is 1. It goes on reducing. It goes on reducing. And beyond 0.5, it goes into, it is into negative. So in some part it is negative, in some part it is positive. So the entire flow is rotating. So the results are plotted for 12 by 12, 32 by 32, and 52 by 52 grid size. You can see the blue line matches with that of the benchmark results. So benchmark results are available in the literature. There is a paper by author named Ghia, G-H-Y-A, Ghia, who has provided the benchmark results for lead-driven cavity flow problems. So we have compared our results with the benchmark results, and it is seen that the results obtained are matching with that of the literature. So whatever the methodology which we have talked about so far is giving us the correct results. Here I'm sharing with you the results which are obtained for variation of V velocity along the horizontal center line of the cavity. So this is the horizontal center line. Along this line, how the V velocity, that is Y velocity, varies. So here the velocity will be 0. Here also the velocity will be 0. So at x equal to 1, velocity is 0. At x equal to 0, V velocity is 0. As I proceed, my V velocity goes through maximum, positive maximum. It again comes down to 0 somewhere. It again goes to negative maximum and comes to 0. So the same thing is seen here. Again, the results are compared with that of the benchmark results, and we can see that 52 by 52 grid size provides me a very close match with that of the benchmark results. The symbols are for benchmark results, which are available in the literature given by Ghia, who is who happened to be one of the important researchers in computational fluid dynamics. So thus I come to the end of this particular session. I have shared with you the results as well. I have shared with you the entire methodology for obtaining the solution to Navier-Stokes equation. If there are any questions, maybe I will take up those questions. Go ahead with your questions. We are left with some 10 minutes or so. So we will try with the questions. And yeah, there is a question by Phegde, Mr. Hemant Phegde. Sir, so we apply the initial gas pressure to a single grid at the moment and calculate velocities, then correct them and use that to calculate the whole grid one by one. See, we need to do the initial gas of pressure to all the grid, all the cell centers. Professor Hemant Phegde, are you there? I think he has left. But the question is like this, you all must be reading this question. The initial gas pressure is to be given to all the cell centers, and then of course, we scroll through all the points, we calculate all the gas velocities, then we try to satisfy the continuity equation. If it doesn't satisfy, we do the pressure correction, and then we calculate the pressure correction using velocity correction and so on. We have seen that. Please share the book name which describes the simple problem coding using C/Fortran. I mean, this is given in Professor Atul Sharma's book. Professor Ranjan, you can look at Professor Atul Sharma's book. The codes are provided. You can look at. I will also share some codes with you after the completion of FDP. So please share the presentation. Today I'm going to share all the presentations which I have made so far. Then there is a question by Professor Rana Robo. Is there any significance for selecting the grid size by even numbers? Not essentially. I mean, that is just the coincidence that the grid size is. Grid size can be selected as per your convenience. It doesn't make any difference as such. Is there any question? I know it's little bit difficult to digest the whole thing in one go. But if you keep on looking at these slides, if you try to understand the things which I have taught at your own, you will be able to develop the better understanding. Why does all the corners of the main domain remains free? Because I have already answered this question a few minutes ago. The corners do not come into picture in terms of a boundary condition. That's the reason. The corners, the boundary conditions of the corner points of the domain are not required, and we don't find out the solution on the boundaries. We find out the solution at the inner cell centers only. So we don't need cell centers at the corners. I hope I have answered to your question, Professor Rana Robo. Is there any more question? If there are no questions, maybe I shall stop.
Sir, one question from my side.
Please go ahead.
Sir, negative velocity physically, what it indicates, sir? Can you please tell me?
It indicates the velocity in the reverse direction, negative x direction. If it is u velocity, if it is occurring in the forward direction, positive x direction, it's positive. Otherwise, it's negative. If the flow goes in the negative x direction, the velocity is negative.
Simulation effect will be the.
Pardon?
Sir, that simulation effect, what it will give a result?
Simulation effect will give the result.
It will not affect our result or what? Negative.
No. See, it is the velocity which we are trying to obtain. We are trying to obtain the solution for velocity itself, no? So from our simulation, if I obtain negative velocity, it means the velocity is in the negative x direction.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
The question in Scilab, is there coding in C language? No, Scilab has its own environment. So Scilab has its own syntax. C language and Scilab is different. So if you want to use Scilab, you need to learn the Scilab syntax. Is that okay, Professor Ranjan? Fine. So thank you very much, dear participants. Let me say a few things about the examination. What I am going to do now, after today's session, I will send you the question paper. There will be 25 questions in the multiple choice questions in the question paper. You have to solve that question paper, and you will be separately sent a Google Sheet. In the Google Sheet, you have to answer all those questions. For example, if you are solving question A, so question number 1. So for question number 1, what is your choice? A, B, C, D. Among those, you will have to put that. Question number 2, you will have to put your choice. Similarly, there are 25 such questions, and you have to pass the examination with 60% of marks as per AICTE guidelines, and then only you will be able to get the certification. Please keep it in mind. The second important thing is that you will be given the certification only if your attendance is 80%, and your attendance will be verified through. We are recording your attendance through through your this thing. There is a provision to record the attendance. Because I'm recording all the sessions, your attendance will also be recorded. We get the Excel sheet from that we can verify. The third important thing is when I'll be sending you the the examination sheet maybe around 4 o'clock or 4:30, and you are expected to revert back to me maximum by 9 o'clock today. Or maybe I will let you know through email. I mean, I'm not sure about the time because Professor Shirsagar is going to prepare a Google Sheet for you. I will talk to him, and maybe at the beginning at 2:30 I will give you a few more instructions. But the question papers I will send you by today afternoon only. You in that email I will be giving you all the instructions. You are requested to please look at those instructions carefully and follow those instructions. Is there any question about this now? Is there any time restriction? No, you have to solve the time restriction is that you have to revert back to us by certain time in this duration. Maybe at 9 o'clock or by 10 o'clock today, you have to revert back. You don't bother about feedback, and Professor Himanshu, don't bother about feedback. We will send you the feedback forms. Is there anything you want to ask? If no, we will stop. Sir, we need PPTs. I will be sending PPTs. My PPTs will be sent to you very soon. Recording, I mean, I will look at it. I will send the recording also. Yeah, no problem. Is there anything else? So thank you very much. I will stop the meeting and we will meet at 2:30. In the afternoon at 2:30 we have the lecture which is a mandatory lecture as prescribed by AICTE. The lecture is on the meditation and the mental health during the COVID pandemic. So we'll be going through that lecture at 2:30. All of you are requested to please be there sharp at 2:30. Mr. Tarnikar from Bangalore, he will be addressing us. I will be introducing Mr. Tarnikar to you. He will help us to keep healthy during the pandemic time. Thank you very much, all of you.